PSA everybody, if you are traveling during this pandemic, don't do it unless you absolutely have to. Because traveling during COVID sucks. Alright, we're gonna get into it. Good morning, everybody. It is currently February 2nd, 2021. It's around 11 a.m. I wanted to simply say thank you to everybody who watched my video yesterday and enjoyed it for some reason. I had a lot of you guys comment on how you guys thought my family was really cute. Many of you guys were mentioning that my intro was way too long. I don't care because it's my vlog. I could do what I want. But that was my intro. My other vlogs won't look like that. It won't be like 5 minutes of me talking at the beginning. But yeah, today I want to do something a little different. This might not be so fun, but it is something that will probably help people who are traveling during this pandemic. Yeah, so I've been researching. There's so much like information on the internet and on YouTube, but nothing very specific to my scenario and situation. So it was really hard to research like what I exactly needed, and there was a new rule that happened beginning of January that there was really like no information on besides like the CDC and basic information, but they weren't very like detailed. Primarily, there are two things that I wanted to address that are different than what is out on YouTube and out on the internet that I couldn't really find. First thing being, there's a new CDC or like just travel guideline rule with traveling overseas. You need to take a COVID test that you need to show before you check in. Secondly is there's a lot of information about being quarantined in a government facility, and there's very few information about quarantining within a rented apartment, right? So which is my scenario right now. The first thing that you need to know is that you need to provide a negative PCR test to the check-in booth, like when you check in for your flight. And you need to bring that to Korea as well. So you'll need to show that 2 times, right? But it needs to be done within a 72-hour period. I was really confused by this because I was like, does this include like your actual flight date? 1 to 3 days prior to your flight date. So for us, we were leaving on Saturday, so 3 days before that. So it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, as long as you took your test and you had the negative result within that date. So we needed to take it at least by Wednesday and have our results out. And you can't take the test like on Tuesday and have your results like collected. It has to be, you have to take your test by at least 72 hours before your actual date. Okay, so that was really helpful information for me that I found. Secondly, they look for very specific things on your test. So this is really important that I didn't know, and I didn't know this information. So I actually had these printed documents. So you can see like I like printed it, and I also like highlighted too, just to like make sure they can see like what they need. And I thought, oh, they just need name and date of birth to make sure that it matches with your passport. When we first got there, they're like, we can't take any of this. And we were shook. Like if you watch my vlog, there was like a very short clip at the beginning at the airport where it's like my mom on my side. I was like looking at my computer and we were super stressed because we're like, oh my god, we're not leaving. What they look for 5 specific things. First, they're looking to make sure that it's a PCR test. It has to be a PCR test. Secondly, they look for the collected date. So basically when you took your test, and also the results date, right? That's the third thing. They look for when you took the test and when you received it. Fourthly, they look for doctor's name and information. And then lastly, make sure that it's an official PDF looking document that provides your results. If it looks like really simple like this, it's really not going to work. So just keep that in mind. They want to make sure that there's information that they can check if it looks really sus, right? Some suggestions here that I mentioned that I'll re-clarify is don't go to CVS. I think I've been to CVS so many times and taken so many tests there, but every time I've taken a test and viewed my results, the PDF looked different. So that's why me and my mom and my sister, even though we all took a CVS test, they all look different. So I would just avoid CVS altogether. Secondly, try to avoid doing a rapid test, but make sure if you do a rapid test that it's the PCR rapid and not the other ones that are out there. Make sure you print out all these documents. They won't take it if it's on your phone. So make sure you print it out, print out your PDF results. And lastly, don't try to forge. I was like really tempted at the airport to just kind of like copy and paste the things that they needed because we had the information. It wasn't false information. They just didn't like our documentation. But don't do that. Apparently they're like, oh, if you do that, like, and it looks suspicious, then they can like scan it and they can verify if this was something that like you drafted together. So I think Korea is very strict on this whole COVID like regulations and traveling. Follow the rules to the best that you can, and things will be okay. And the last suggestion that I have for you is try to go there an hour earlier just to make sure that you have all the right documents. And if you need to like, drive out or ask a friend to, bring a document that you need, enough time to kind of go through that process so that you don't have to stress out by going last minute. So that's the suggestion for you. When you get on a plane, they give you 4 documents: a health declaration form, a traveler's like destination form, traveler's declaration form, and an arrival card. If you've been to Korea or even like just any country, there's always that booth that like checks your temperature, but they don't ever stop you or like talk to you. But there is where you need to have your COVID documentation. So your PDF tests from CVS, Curative, or wherever, have that ready and to show them. I think it was helpful to highlight like the things that I mentioned so that it's easier for them to find. And after they do that, they basically give you one of these forms. They give you this, which basically says that you provided the necessary documents. After that, they take your temperature and you go on to immigration, and this is where it gets really like lengthy. There's 4 different booths. There are like 4 different booths that you have to visit. First one, they take the 2 documents. It's this white and yellow paper declaring, oh, I don't have any symptoms, and this is where I'm quarantining, right? So they take that information and they take your phone and they download an app for you, which basically monitors like your location 24/7. And they fill out your information for you. I think because it's in Korean, it's easier for them to just do it on their own. The second booth, they basically verify that phone number that you've given is correct. So if you have a Korean number, I think they just check it. They have like a phone, like one of those old land phones, and they dial the phone number that they give you or you give them, and they call to make sure. So we didn't have a Korean phone. They just called my aunt, who's I guess home we're staying at, called her to make sure that she was the right person. After that, so you have this paper, this yellow form. So you need these 2 forms, right? Focus. COVID results and health screening to make sure that you're okay and healthy. After that, you go into that booth where they usually like take a picture of you and they scan your index fingers. They make sure that you have these 2 forms, these 2 colored forms, the red and yellow forms, and they make sure to see where you're quarantined at and see if that's okay for you to be quarantined. Me and my sister both received this lanyard that said Incheon Airport, this like red lanyard, and they led me to a different room, and this is the 4th and last room, to verify where you're going to be quarantined at. If you don't provide the proper documentation for like, oh, I'm going to be staying here and I have relatives and whatnot, please they'll just ship you off into a government facility, a hotel room, or whatever they give you. We didn't know at the time, but me and my sister had the lanyards, and that meant they need to go to a government facility. So me and my sister both went in first. Thankfully, we had a very nice, kind nunchi ajumma who knew that we were traveling with my mom for some reason, and she waited for my mom to come in. My mom explained that we're going to be staying at our aunt's apartment. The lady was asking for very specific documentation that thankfully my dad and my mom both researched and I printed out. So this scenario is very specific. Both me and my sister are American citizens, and my mom is also a US citizen. She doesn't have a Korean passport, but my aunt sent a form of just information that states that my mom has relatives. It has to be this very official looking Korea document. I think Koreans, if they see this, they automatically know that this is like legit. And then basically we provided proof of her like naturalization, certificate of naturalization in the US, the document that states her name change because her Korean name is different than her American name. Me and my sister's birth certificates, and here it states both of our parents' names. When we showed these 4 documents to her, one stating that my mom has direct relatives who live here currently. Secondly, her neutralization and her name change, and also our birth certificates proving and stating that we're all related. The lady automatically was like, okay, you guys are good to go. And she even told us like, oh, you guys did a really great job in preparing and coming here. There was another man in the room. I hope you don't watch this, but we felt so bad for you because he provided documentation from America, and that doesn't work. They need documentation from Korea because they need to be familiar with it, and that's not just like some bogus,
That's
like
suspicious.
forged Photoshop copy.
That's weird.
The lady was like, okay, give me your lanyards because you guys are not going to the quarantine facility. You guys are going to the location that you guys provided. So we're like, praise the Lord. Everything worked out. You pick up your baggage and you give your declaration form, the traveler's declaration form. And then after that, they verify one more time your quarantine location and you get sent into different sections. You show them, oh, this is where I'm staying at, and they take you to either a bus or like a taxi or whoever. Yeah, that's basically it, and that's how we survived. It was a hot mess. Some last minute comments that I want to mention before I end this video is print all your documentation unless it specifically says that you don't need to print it. But I think for the most part, while you guys are in immigration, you should have a printed copy of everything. Secondly, if you have a Korean number, if you can get a hold of an international number or Korean number, that's very helpful, so they can just directly call you. It's a little bit of a hassle to go through my aunt, but thankfully she's very kind and has been very helpful for us. For us, staying here is saving us a lot of money because I'm sure you all know by now, but quarantining in a government facility is anywhere from like $1,500 to $2,000 per person. So this is the cheapest option, but it's very difficult to do this. So if you don't have any direct family living here who can help you do all this, and my aunt found so much information too and verified with the city and the health department and whatever to make sure that this whole situation scenario was okay. And lastly, if you are a Korean citizen, this probably won't apply to you, but it's a lot more easier for you than it is for American citizens. Ultimately, my heart is, I know that this is not like a fun video, but it's more informational, so it might not be as engaging, but I know it'll be helpful for at least like one person. So even if you're that one person, I wanted to make sure that there's this video for you. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and look forward to my vlogs quarantining here in this apartment. All right, peace out.